Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. So this happened to me a few years ago. I joined a Discord server about a game that I really enjoy playing, Darksiders. It's loosely based on the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. I had been a fan of it since the first game, but since it wasn't the most popular series to ever exist, finding people who know it wasn't exactly easy. So, I joined a Discord community about it to meet other people who wanted to gush about the games with me. While the server was about the games, a lot of the time we just hung out, which I enjoyed. The company was nice too, and I made a lot of friends there. Eventually though, the next game came out, Darksiders 3, which focused on Fury, the only female horse rider of the four. So, being me, I immediately switched my profile picture to her. I got a few remarks about it, some complimenting me how cool it is, most just noticing the change. But I did however get one comment calling me a simp because she's a female character. To which I corrected by saying that I wasn't simping, I simply liked the character and I thought that her design was cool. I got a sarcastic, "Of course, sure," from some of my online friends, before I had to explain again that I am not attracted to her and that I'm straight. Well, those words were a mistake. Of course, there was a bit of a confusion. Apparently, everyone in the server thought that I was a guy beforehand, so the news seemed to be a bit of a shock to them. But after about a minute or two, most people seemed to settle down. However, there was one person who didn't, a mod, Mr. Johnster, let's just call him that, and he seemed to not believe me. And while it didn't matter much if people knew if I was a girl or not, he seemed to be very concerned about it, going so far as to even private message me asking if it was really true. I confirmed it, but it didn't seem to be enough for him. He started to demand proof. He asked for a photo of me, which I of course didn't feel comfortable with. I told him no, because I wasn't comfortable showing him my face. Well, apparently, he didn't take that well, as he started to demand a photo from me, saying that as a moderator in the server, he needed to confirm everyone's identity, which made zero sense to me. But he insisted that I send him a picture. I stood my ground, only to be berated for not following the rules of the server. And just to mention, there were absolutely no rules saying that you need to show your face to anyone. And then he said that he was going to kick me if I didn't comply. I told him to go fuck himself since he was being very rude, and then I blocked him. Within the minute, I was kicked from the server, and when I tried to rejoin, I could see that I was actually banned and not just kicked. Realizing this, I just sat there, taking it in. I had made so many friends in that server, I didn't want to lose them. So, I reached out. Luckily, I had added a few people in that server, including the server owner, Radical Potato Man. I then sent him a private message telling him what happened, providing screenshots of everything and then pleading my case. And after I explained everything to him, to say that he was upset would be an understatement. I was added back into the server and I was asked to join a voice call. And after a few minutes, Potato Man and Johnster also joined. I felt nervous being in a call with Johnster after everything that happened, but Potato Man said to mute and just listen. He said that if I wanted to talk without anyone hearing my voice, I could just type in the chat or message it to him. So I messaged him saying that I agreed and listened to what was about to transpire. What followed was a verbal beatdown that made me smile. Potato Man called him out on his creepy behavior, saying that he was abusing his power as a mod and that for breaking the rules, he was going to be banned from the server. And not only that, since they know each other in other servers, Potato Man was going to spread the word about him being a creep to all of them so other people can be on a lookout. And with that, Johnster was banished to the shadow realm, so to speak. And I didn't hear from him again, mainly since I blocked him too. I guess that's why it's good to always be kind to others and to make friends. Otherwise, I'm not sure if I would have ever been added back to the server or not. But I'm just glad that I found my little happy place again online. I had a really weird encounter with a guy online about 2 years ago that I thought would be interesting to share on here. In the end of the whole thing, nothing really happened to me, but it was a bit eye-opening to the fact that these people exist in our modern world, and this kind of thing happens even to this day. What's worse, it was on Facebook of all places that this whole thing unraveled. So, a couple of years ago, I got a friend request from a name that was vaguely familiar. Like, I knew the person's name from somewhere, but I honestly could not place where I knew him from, nor could I place a face to the name. Their profile was pretty well locked down, so going to it, all I could see was his profile photo, and it wasn't his face. It was just a picture of his young child fishing. Like I said, his name was familiar, but I just could not seem to figure out where I knew it from. So, I kind of just assumed that it was someone from high school that didn't make much of an impression on me or something. I ended up accepting his friend request, and as soon as I did, I got a direct message from him, like immediately, to the point that I almost assumed that it could have been a bot and they were going to pitch a scam to me. The message said, "Hello G-Man12, thanks for accepting my request. How have you been?" Which was definitely a bot-like message. So I ended up responding with something like, "I'm fine, but how do I know you?" He replied with a sad face and "You really don't remember me?" I told him that I didn't, and he mentioned that he went to the same high school as me. Of course, this information was easily accessible, so I kind of prodded a bit extra to see if they were just scraping my page for info to claim that they knew me. But then he mentioned a specific class, Mrs. Brower's biology class, 4th period of sophomore year. He said that he and I were partners on the cell biology project, which made it all click. I actually did know this guy. He was someone that I was an acquaintance with. I wasn't super close with him, but he was someone that I had met in the past, so I was a bit more comfortable with adding him as a friend. I mentioned that I knew who he was now, and I apologized for not remembering him, saying that it had been a long time and that I had a bad memory, just trying to make light of the situation. We chatted for a bit, just catching up on a few things that had happened over the years, and really it was a pretty normal conversation. The next day, I had logged into Facebook and I had gotten another message from him. It was just a "hey," so I responded and I asked what's up, just making small talk again. He then sent a message that said, "Okay, I promise that what I'm about to say to you isn't a scam or anything, and it's not an MLM, but I just have to shoot my shot." Obviously, this message didn't bode well. I assumed that he was about to try to sell me on some pyramid scheme or something, but it was weirder than that. He mentioned that he was about to go on a retreat for a group that he was a part of, and that he wanted to talk me to about going with him. I asked what kind of group he was referring to because it was a bit weird to put it that way. And then he told me that it was like a church group and that it was what they called a self-focus and healing retreat, and they encourage people to bring friends that may benefit from it. He then mentioned that he saw that I was going through some tough times and that it may really help me. I told him that I wasn't really religious and that I did appreciate the thought though, because I was going through some things, but I didn't really see me fitting into that group if it was for a church. He pushed it further though, saying that it wasn't a religious retreat and that all were welcome. I said that if it was for a church, how was it not religious? And then he mentioned that they weren't the type of group to push faith onto their visitors and that they wouldn't be trying to convert people. It was simply about trying to find yourself and committing to self-reflection. This all sounded really weird to me. An event called a self-focus and healing retreat for a church group that wasn't faith-based or religious in nature? I was definitely curious, so I asked him if he could give me any information on his church, expecting something like a website or something. He then told me that he could actually get me in one of their sessions, which was, again, a weird word to use. I asked if it was an in-person thing, trying to get out of it, and then he mentioned that, thanks to COVID guidelines, they had moved their normal sessions to be online and through Zoom calls. I relented, and I said that I would sit in on the next one and see what it was all about. It was an hour of my time on a Tuesday, so it wasn't a big deal to me in the end. The minute that Zoom call started, I knew that this was way more than just a little church get-together. When the session started, there was a group of like 10 men that walked into the camera's focus, and they were all wearing white robes and masks, not like a certain group that one may associate with this kind of dress. They were actually masked and not hoods. They covered the entirety of the men's faces with holes only cut out for their eyes. The 10 men started chanting and stepped in unison to create a circle on the stage. And after about 5 minutes of chanting, they formed a line and stared straight into the camera. No joke, the entire line of men started to undress, like stripping down from their robes down to literally nothing except their mask. I have never clicked off a call so damn fast. This was a cult. This guy was trying to recruit me to some kind of cult, and apparently they needed to be naked to do whatever they did during their weekly meetings. I'll give them credit for taking it online to be considerate of those that may not be able to make it in person, but yeah, that is not for me. The guy then sent me a message about 2 hours later asking me what I thought, and I mentioned that it seemed a bit cult-like and that I didn't stay for the whole thing. He got kind of irate and asked when I left. I mentioned that I left when the old men on the stage started getting naked, and then he went off. He started on about how I didn't understand the importance of what they were doing, what their stripping down signified, and since I left, I missed the entire point of the session. I told him again that it was a cult and that I didn't need to understand it. Needless to say, he blocked me, which was fine with me. I wasn't really interested in all of this because yeah, cults aren't my thing. Well, that's the strangest thing that I have ever dealt with online, and I'm kind of glad that I haven't gotten a message from him again about all of this. And I'm also glad that he decided blocking me was a proper way to deal with it. And if I'm being completely honest, I almost wish that it was just a pyramid scheme. "9 years ago, I had met a person that to this day, I still wish I never did. I was an isolated, bullied, and depressed 8th grader with the added state of being a plus-size kid in a sports-centric town. So basically, I was beaten and ridiculed on a daily basis. I couldn't make any friends with my new classmates. All of my old friends from my elementary school got placed in different classes, and nobody was in the same after-school groups as me anymore. We were also all in a scout group, but that band disbanded before I got into middle school. I was also lonely that if someone talked to me without picking on me, it made me happy. I had a Google Plus account, well, the only social media that I could access at school, that I kept hidden from my parents, that I would also use to check out my favorite fandoms and hopefully use to make some new friends. One day, I was on Google Plus in the computer lab, and I had commented under a piece of fan art of a character that I liked. The person who made the post had replied to me not even a minute later. I remember getting very excited seeing that notification. My heart was swelling up in excitement. The two of us spent the next 10 minutes of my class talking to each other in the comment section. We ended up replying so much that we flooded a good portion of the comments with our talk. And after that, I had to change classes. I logged back in one of the Chromebooks that we had stored in the back of the class and saw that she actually messaged me. Her name was Haley. At least, she told me that was her name. But years later, I'm not as sure that it was actually her name. In the message that I got, Haley told me that she was 2 years older than me and that we had a lot of things in common. I spent the rest of the school day on my phone, not giving a damn to any of my classes. We talked for the next week in our DMs until she suggested that we message each other in a private chat room. And later that day, we made a private chat on an online messaging site, and in our first conversation, we at first talked on messages. Then Haley asked if we could also do a voice call. I told her that I wasn't sure, but she told me that it was only to better hold a conversation with me. And eventually, after she asked me multiple times, I just gave in. After an hour of us talking, she then suggested we video chat. I agreed, both to make sure that she was actually my age, but also to put a name to a face. Haley turned on her camera, and she did look in the same age range as me. I don't know why, but the fact haunts me more than anything else. The fact that she looked so close to my age, plus that she easily smiled and spoke so friendly to me, made me feel that I had nothing to be afraid of. So, that led me to quickly believe that I could trust her. We ended up talking for hours after, with me practically on cloud 9 the entire time. In the beginning of our little friendship, things were going all right. We told each other about our schools, what we liked, and gushing over our favorite series. We talked almost every day and stayed up late talking nearly all night. We even exchanged a couple of silly pictures of ourselves and memes back and forth a lot. After we had been talking for 6 months, Haley asked me if I would like to meet her friends. At first, I was ecstatic, and the thought of having more friends made me so excited that I didn't think twice before saying yes. Haley then invites me in, and I got to meet her other friends. I had a completely different feeling about these people compared to what I felt with Haley. Something made me feel unsafe in that chat room, even though they all seemed nice, and that Haley reassured me that I could trust them. It felt like my instincts were trying to warn me, but I wasn't sure about what, so I ignored it. Most of them were much older than me. In a chat with her main friends, there were 6 other people. Most of them were 18 or 19, but there were 2 guys that I distinctly remembering being in their 20s. I asked how they all met, and they all told me that they all met either on other social media sites or from real life, but wouldn't answer any more of my questions. I was a bit naive, so all of the red flags that were popping up went completely over my head. From constant loud talking to frequently overlapping each other, the calls I were on with them were pure chaos. The messages were even worse because they would frequently drop cuss words and topics that should not be brought up with someone who is still a minor. I tried building genuine connections with them, but they all acted dismissive to me and acted like I was annoying whenever I tried to talk in a conversation. Needless to say, I did not like them very much. But Haley, on the other hand, was all about them. She would pull up exact same habits, jokes, dirty words, and all of that with the others. They could say something super problematic, but she would be laughing right along with them. I was shocked by this version of Haley because she never acted like this with me when it was just the two of us. We still talked a bunch, but slowly, she was talking to her other friends more than she was with me. At first, I thought it was fine, but the more she ignored my messages or didn't pick up my calls, the more that I got bothered. When I called to confront Haley about blowing me off, she went ballistic on me, saying that I was being selfish and that I didn't want her to talk to her other friends because I was jealous. I explained that that wasn't true, but she wouldn't listen and then hung up on me. Haley then ghosted me for almost a month, leaving me worried and upset over what happened. When she started talking to me again, I was so emotionally distraught and I was crying on our first call and apologizing for what I said the last time that we talked. She told me that it was fine, that she just needed some time alone and that she would talk to me a bit more. And indeed, she did, although not what I thought she would. Haley began to tell me that she had depression and that was the reason that she wouldn't talk to me for a month. I didn't judge her about it and said whatever she needed to talk about that she could come to me. This led to her trauma dumping on me nearly every day, talking about how shitty her home life was and how bad her relationship was with her mom and how much she hated herself. And I was there to offer an ear and some kind words whenever Haley called or messaged me about it. This quickly became part of our routine. Almost daily, in the middle of us having any kind of conversation, she would begin complaining about anything happening during her day. If not that, it would be about how ugly she thought she was, or how much her life sucked, and how she wanted to end things. The last one freaked me out the most. I was worried about her because we lived in different states, and I couldn't help her in person. Every time she would become self-deprecating, I would say otherwise, giving her compliments and word of affirmation for so long that my throat ached and felt raw. And then, just as fast as she would bring it up, she dropped that conversation and we talked like we were before. Haley also began calling for long periods of time and messaging me late into the night. Phone calls would stretch for hours at a time and her texts would come in until 3 or 4 in the morning. The thing was, it was mainly her talking now. Every phone call, she would take over the conversation. If I didn't message her back quickly enough, she would spam multiple texts back to back, faster than I can even read them. I would try to end them myself, but every time I would try, Haley would chastise me for wanting to leave our conversation when not long ago, I wanted to have her attention. She basically guilt-tripped me back into talking to her, and it worked. Even if I had lost interest in our talks or didn't want her to message me during class, I would still let her talk and reply. At least I still had her attention and she still wanted to talk to me. This all went on in a cycle for 2 years and it left me feeling more anxious and exhausted than anything else ever did. It felt like we had nothing in common anymore, and she either ghosts me for a week or spends the entire weekend texting me nonstop. The topics of her self-worth have also gotten worse. They escalated to her messaging me goodbye or I can't live like this anymore, without responding to any of my following messages or calls. Alongside of that, she would send me pictures of her marking herself, telling me about how it felt to do it. The sight of those messages would send me into panic attacks, and every time that I would panic and message her after, I would be sent into tears. And not only that, the group chat with her other friends got worse. Arguments broke out frequently, drama and gossip spread like an oil spill, and it led to people being blocked and unblocked almost every few days. I hated talking to them. They began ganging up on me in the messages, and Haley was often the first one to make rude jokes about me, and they would all laugh at it. I began getting sick of it. I would stop messaging and calling both Haley and her friends, despite her begging me to. One late night, while the group was in an argument over text, I just hit my breaking point. I was tired of all the drama and them treating me like shit all the time. So, I messaged the group chat that I had enough of them and privately messaged Haley that I needed a break. Then I left both chat rooms, blocked everyone that I talked to, deleting my messaging account, and deleted the site from my computer's history. And once it was all over, I felt like I have been freed from some kind of prison, and all I could do was cry in relief and euphoria over the whole thing being over. I later found out that all of the pictures that Haley had sent me were all stock images and photoshopped. I also found out from a bit of digging through her background that a lot of things didn't add up. I learned that she was actually a lot older than what she originally told me, at least 6 years older than me, meaning that when we first met when I was 14, she was about 20 years old. Many things from our interaction still haunt me, especially the picture of her marks and her scathing self-deprecating messages. For almost 3 months, I would have nightmares about Haley getting back in contact with me and what she would say or do to me. I have many better friends now, and I am absolutely certain that I will never have to hear from Haley again. But sometimes, I still wonder who that woman really was and what was it about me that she was interested in. Hopefully, I won't ever find out. For clarification, the pictures she would send me when we would message each other were all pictures of her friends and family and places that she claimed to have been to and the items that she owned. A few weeks after I blocked Haley, I found them stored on my computer, and I got curious, so I reversed image searched the pictures that she sent me, and they were all stock photos. Every result that I found from her picture led back to a stock photo site, with the only difference between them being that she cropped out the logo of the site from the pictures. Basically, I was lied to a lot. So, to Haley, if you somehow ever find this story, let's not meet again. I, a 24-year-old female, wouldn't exactly call myself a gamer per se, but I do enjoy hanging out and playing with my friends after work. During COVID times, when it was even harder to meet up in person, we mainly just played games online. A little secret about me is that I'm a huge fan of horror games, even though I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. So when a horror game called Phasmophobia came out, me and my friends all started playing it weekly. In the game, you need to have a microphone in order to properly play it. So, even though we were all in a Discord voice chat, We also could hear each other in the game's voice proximity function, which means that if our player characters were near each other, we could hear them. One day, after a particularly long and frustrating day at work, I hopped into the Discord server voice chat and I waited for my friends to join. While two of my guy friends joined in, my best friend Angie couldn't make it. Her boyfriend, one of the two guys in the VC, told us that she would join in an hour or so because she wasn't home yet. They lived together, so the heads up was noted, and we just decided to play a few games without her. While we were having fun, I teased the other guy friend about him dying. He then complained that I hid in the truck too much and that it was basically only the two of them doing the work. He made the bold claim that if there were 4 people instead of 3, that he would survive every single time. We both laughed, and Angie's boyfriend, let's call him Todd, said that it was just a skill issue. The whole thing turned into a little bet between them, and to prove their point, we queued an open room. An open room is a lobby where random people online can join. And soon enough, we got another guy in the lobby, and after selecting our gear, we set off on our mission. The guy didn't seem to talk much, at least not at first. We just went on about our normal routine of looking for the spot on the map where the ghost would frequent. And that's when I heard it. It sounded like a moan, maybe a whimper. Thinking it was potentially the ghost, with weird audio, I told the others in the Discord VC where it was. But when they got there and checked, they didn't find anything. So we went on looking, only for me to hear another moan, along with some heavy breathing. That definitely wasn't the game, or at least not from the ghost. I looked around, and that's when I saw him. The random from before. His character was just standing there while I heard weird moaning coming from his mic. It was the proximity voice chat. The closer I got, the louder I heard it. Being obviously freaked out by this guy, I yelled, "What the fuck?" Only for him to moan louder. My friends who could only hear me from the Discord call, since they weren't close enough for the proximity chat, asked me what was going on. I, moving away from the creep, told them what was going on. But as I moved my character away, his one followed me, still moaning and panting. My friends, equally weirded out, ended the mission, and it kicked us back to the lobby, where when it loaded in, was filled with the sounds of this guy's grunting. Todd, who was the room owner, kicked the guy almost instantly, but it was still nonetheless uncomfortable. After a minute or two of decompressing and venting about what happened to each other, I got a Steam notification, a friend request. Checking it, it said that I recently played with this person in Phasmophobia. Well, it was the fastest decline and block that I have ever done in my life. We didn't play much after that, even when Angie got there. We just filled her in on what happened. And when we played in the days following that, we made sure that we didn't play with strangers. Way back when I was 15, maybe 16, I used to be a member of a medium-sized online forum that was designed for indie authors to just share their work, get feedback, or even win small prizes for little competitions that they held. I was actually one of the most active users on the forum because I was really giving being an author everything I had. I was putting a lot of effort into writing short stories for a collection. My whole situation started during one of the writing competitions that I mentioned. I don't recall the theme, I just remember that I was super confident that I could write a decent little story for it. And much to my surprise, I actually won the competition. The prize was a $20 Target gift card, so it wasn't like it was some big contest for a major prize. But to me, it was an amazing feeling knowing that I had won this writing contest where dozens of people had entered. The day that I won, I received a private message from one of the head mods to the forum. At that time, I only knew him as White Oak. And after a while, which I'll explain in a moment, I learned what his full legal name was. And that said, for the sake of the story, I'm just going to refer to him as White Oak. So, White Oak sent me a DM with a message saying, "Hi, congrats on winning our monthly writing competition. Your story was chosen by majority vote of the mod team, and as such, you've won a gift card. I just need to know where to send it and who to send it to, and I'll get it in the mail right away." Being a super excited 16-year-old girl that was feeling like they had just won the world, I responded with my first and last name as well as my home address, and at no point did I pause and think that maybe I should have asked my parents or not sent this person my home address because I thought this was going to be a professional trade-off. I won a contest and I was getting a prize. After I sent it in, he told me that he would get the card in the mail here as soon as possible, and once again told me that my story was perfectly written and just really talked up my prose. I was elated that someone that was so important was giving me attention. He was important to me at least, because he was a big shot on the forum. I thanked him and we had an informal conversation, and that was pretty much where I thought it was going to end. I thought it was going to be just him complimenting my work and me thanking him. Of course, that's not where it ended. About a week later, I hadn't received any word on the gift card or whether or not it was on the way. And while I didn't want to be pushy, I decided to send White Oak a message to just ask if he had sent it yet, as I was excited to get it. He messaged me back pretty much right away and said that he was going to send it in the next day or two, but that he hadn't yet. I just thanked him again, and I just mentioned that I was still excited about the whole thing. After a few minutes of not getting a message back, I thought that that was the end of the conversation again. But then, White Oak sent me a response saying, "You know, you're really beautiful." I was a bit confused. He had no way of knowing what I looked like. I messaged him asking where that came from, and he responded saying, "Oh, I looked you up and found your Facebook. I was looking at your pictures and I just wanted to tell you that you were beautiful." To say I was a bit shocked would be an understatement. I responded by saying, "Oh, I didn't expect you to look me up." And in his words, he couldn't help himself because of how sexy my name was, and he also said that he was very happy that I was just as sexy as my name. At this point, I knew that he was going to keep going with it, so I figured that I would shut him down and just tell him that I was only 16 and that he should probably move on. He then tells me that, again in his words, preferred girls my age because they were less likely to fight back. I was mortified by this comment. I didn't respond to this message, and I figured that I would move on instead and it would just go away. Unfortunately, on this forum, there was no method of blocking people or ignoring them, which was either a major designed oversight for the page or done maliciously based on what happened later. So, because of that, I had no way to stop him from messaging me, and he did keep messaging me. He would send me a message daily telling me how much he loved me. He would send me random messages asking me to send him naked pictures of myself. He would send me messages telling me all about the things that he was doing to himself while thinking of me and while he was creeping through my Facebook. After several days of putting up with this, I decided that I would move to take action against White Oak. I figured that I would contact the owner of the forum with a message and then tell him what his second in command was doing. This did not go as I expected, of course. I sent him a message with screenshots of the messages that White Oak had sent me, and I explained that I had given White Oak my information for the gift card that I won from the contest. I tried to give him as much information and explain the whole thing as best as I could, and the screenshots that I took were more than enough to really display what was happening. He did reply, but his response was that he would have a talk to him about it. He didn't say sorry, he didn't seem to really care, or that he was shocked at all. About 2 days later, he sent me another message that said, "I spoke with White Oak about the situation, and he told me that it never happened, and I believe him, so please don't contact us about this again." I was livid. He was literally believing that White Oak had never sent me any of these messages, even though I literally had receipts. I messaged him back saying just that, asking, "How could you believe White Oak over me when I had screenshots of the conversation?" And then mentioned that I would be passing the information to the police since I was a minor. I thought for sure that he would see that he needed to take it seriously. But then, the next day when I went to see if he replied, my account was gone. Like, completely gone. I tried to log in, and it kept giving me an error saying that my account didn't exist. When I tried to do a forgot password, it said that my email didn't exist in the system. He had completely purged my account, probably as a way to cover for White Oak, as I now had no live access to my account. But I still had my screenshots, but a lot of good that would do for me if I could improve anything on the site. At this point, I decided to bring my mom and dad into the situation. I told them that I had won a writing contest and that I had given the site my information for the gift card. I told them about how the guy had found me on Facebook, and I gave them my screenshots and explained the whole thing. They were not happy, obviously, and they implemented several controls on my internet usage, which was fine. But when my dad contacted the police, they basically told him that there wasn't much that they could do without information on the person, since all I had was a username on a random forum. Again, disappointing, but this was around 2008 or so. I don't think they had the forensic capabilities that they do now, so I can't really say that I fault them. Maybe they could have done something more, but it is what it is. And then the final little bit of the story is that about a week after this all happened, I had signed into my Facebook, which I admittedly should have deleted considering that he had found me. I saw when I logged in that I had a friend request from a man named Gary T. At first, it didn't click in my head who it was. I accepted it, and as soon as I did, I got a message saying, "I'm so sorry we had to delete your account. I miss you so much, and I'm glad you accepted my request." I responded with some harsh words, and thankfully, Facebook does have a block option, and then I blocked him. I felt sick that he really had found my Facebook and that he thought that I would seriously just sit there and let him stay on my friends list. Thankfully, that was the last time that I ever heard from White Oak or Gary or whatever. The only reason I thought about submitting the story was that White Oak came up in a conversation with my sister. I had put it out of my mind after all these years, but she mentioned him for some reason during one of our conversations, and it led me to thinking about the whole thing again. That night, I actually went home and I googled his name, and after a bit of digging, I actually found out that he was in prison, at least probably. I found a story about him being arrested and charged for lewd behavior with a minor, as well as several accounts of soliciting minors. From what I read, he is going to be in prison for a very long time. So at least, with that fact out there, I guess I never have to worry about meeting White Oak ever again. And here's the riddle for this video. Hey everyone, this is your creepy sister. Thank you so much for watching the video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to leave a like and a comment. It really helps the channel out. A big shout out to both my channel members and Patreon members. Thank you so much for taking your support to the next level. You guys are great. And again, to everyone, stay scared because your fear feeds me.